Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have one of our honorees with us today, Christopher Green. Let me give you a brief biography of Christopher's swimming. He has entries in the long swim database from 1969 Tor Bay to 2011 Windermere. Swim in an incredible 11 countries for that period of time. South Africa, America, Israel, England, France, Ireland, Switzerland, Spain, Morocco, Gibraltar, and Bermuda. I probably left out a few. Christopher, say hello to everyone.
Hello.
Tell us about your early days of swimming, which is presumably a swimming club. And were you a champion as a kid?
No, not as a child. I still swam as a child, swam for the school, but wasn't a champion. It was only age 25 when I took to open water swimming. 69 was the first one. I tried Windermere, Tor Bay, then left it for a couple of years while I qualified as a chartered surveyor, then came back into it fully in 1975.
And how did you get into open water? Who enticed you? What was the catch?
I had a lecturer at university, Bob Fletcher, who was a channel swimmer, and he got me into it. And I used to go and swim and train with him while I was at uni, and it just progressed from there. I found I could do the 3 miles, then the 5 miles, then the 7s, and then the 10s. So I built up very slowly over a couple of years.
And you presumably were living in the north of England, as I see from your swims, lots and lots of swims in the Lake District.
Yes, the Lake District is where I spent a lot of my childhood, either canoeing, climbing, camping, or whatever. And it was a natural progression to come up to the lakes. I knew them well. Similar to Morecambe Bay, I knew that well, and I knew how to work out the tides. In Coniston, I used to practice in Coniston. It was a nice 5.5 mile swim. So instead of just training, doing half a mile or a mile, I used to make an effort just to do the full length. I think I notched up 83 lengths altogether in the 50 odd years I've been doing it.
And you mentioned Marcum Bay, which was a famous swim for maybe for people in Britain of a certain era. It's kind of gone off the radar. You did Morecambe Bay, 51 times, I think?
Yes, I did.
A famous swim in this day. Tell us about the place and tell us why it was a tricky swim.
It was a tricky swim because of the very high rise and fall of the tide. And the tides are different every time. Commander Jerry Forsberg used to swim in there, and I used to swim with him in competitions. He got the record and said, "Why don't you try for the record?" So I had a local boatman that knew the tides, and then I got to work them out as well. And it was a pretty challenging swim. And I did one ways, and then I did 2 ways. And in the end, I took Jerry Forsberg's 2-way record. The first person on the beach to congratulate me was Jerry Forsberg. So it was a local swim, but it's very, very challenging. Unfortunately, the tides have changed now, and you can't do the swim because the water doesn't get right up to the bay. Maybe in somebody else's lifetime, it'll all change again, but not for the foreseeable future.
Would you say the water has changed? I'm curious by what you mean by that.
The erosion, because of the huge sandbanks, some of which can be measuring 4 miles by 2 miles, they move around every spring tide. And there are various rivers entering into the bay which alter, and there's not as much water now coming up to the top of the bay.
Okay, fascinating. I read that you stopped swimming in Morecambe Bay when you had a particular incident. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so on one of the swims, got hit by lion's mane jellyfish. In Morecambe Bay, there's a lot of sand in suspension, so you can't see your hand in front of you. And I just went into lots and lots of jellyfish, and I got toxic poisoning. I got stung in my throat. spent 2 days in coronary care. I felt quite a bit of a fraud, really, particularly as I'd just done 9 of the 10 miles. So I only had 1 mile to go, but I had to get out. That's, yeah, that was exciting. I went back the next year.
Okay, so it wasn't quite the end of you.
Not the end, no.
Okay. And I think an incredible 21 swims at the length of Windermere. Tell everybody a little bit about Windermere. Again, a very famous lake swim in England. Continues to this day to be popular, but it doesn't have the same cachet that it had in your era. No,
true. It's England's largest lake. It's only half an hour from where I live, fortunately. I used to do the championships every year. It's a good 10.5 miles. The first 10 miles is easy. It's just the last half mile that's hard. But it's a nice, clean lake. It's quite busy. I enjoy the lake. I've crewed dozens and dozens of times on it as well as swimming it. I used to help channel swimmers train on Windermere. It's because I know it quite well. It's a nice lake.
I'm glad you said that, because I swam it a couple of years ago, and I have to say the last half an hour, I was kind of remembering childhood prayers, thinking, is this thing ever going to end? And it was. It happens from time to time, but in Windermere it was particularly nasty last bit. I don't know why.
It's always just round the next corner, just round the next corner, just round the next corner.
Yeah. In 2000, you swam all the lakes in the Lake District, 16 lakes. Obviously, at some point, it became a goal and a drive of yours. How did that goal come about? Did somebody suggest it? Did somebody challenge you? Did you run out of other ideas?
Somebody suggested it, and nobody had ever done it before. People have claimed they've done 10 or 12 of them. Some of the lakes you're not allowed in, those that are reservoirs. But if you go at night and do it, then nobody challenges you. So managed to notch up all 16 of them.
And this person who suggested it, did they suggest it in a, Christopher, you're a fabulous swimmer, you should be able to knock this off? Or was it, you'd not be able?
Somebody said you're not able to do it. So if there's a challenge there, yes, of course. Thirlmere was the worst. You're not allowed in Thirlmere, but there's nobody about at night. So
through the sheep pads, over the fence, through a couple of rock walls, down a hill, and
correct.
Next thing you know, you're swimming somehow. And
then you finish the swim, get the canoeist to go. We both get the canoe, then run for it. Yeah. Yes, it was a good swim. That.
Oddly, for an Englishman, you don't seem to have an English Channel solo on your log.
It's not for the want of trying. I've got the England to 1 mile off France badge. I was always in the wrong place at the wrong time. I have done 13 relays, so I've got the hang of the channel, and I've helped quite a few people on the channel, but it just never gelled. Yet every time I went to New York and swim around Manhattan, I always got a 100% success. So I tended to home in on those. And it was a good weekend away.
And Manhattan was 13, 14, 15 times, something like this?
I did 14 Manhattans. I was the first Briton to get round there. And I held the record for the number of crossings for a long time, which must have annoyed the Americans. But I was on the committee for the New York Swimming Club, and I helped arrange it. Very, very popular swim, so much so towards the end, I wasn't allowed in it because I was too slow.
Well, I guess that brings us to one of the topics. You're one of those swimmers who not only managed to do all the swims yourself, but you dedicated years and decades of your life to helping others. Tell us how you started helping and what joy or satisfaction you got out of that, from the British Long Distance Swimming Association to crewing to mentoring to coaching. Why? Why did you do those things?
I've spent 50 years and that is my only hobby. And I like to think I put back in what I've had out. I've had an awful lot out. And I've swum in some lovely countries and a lot of first-time swims. I've been on the committee for all my local swimming clubs and the national one. And I've organised swims. I do safety on swims. Yes, I've put a lot in, and I've perhaps mentored quite a few. Nobody showed me how to do it originally, so I felt quite pleased that I was able to show other people how to do the swims, from youngsters right through to middle-aged people. I've enjoyed that.
I did a calculator one time for English Channel solo swimmers, and it basically said, "Congratulations, you've done the English Channel. Fill in a few details." And it calculated how many days of volunteer help had gone into your channel as a suggestion you might owe back. And people would call me up and say, "This can't be right, Ned. It's come out with 65 or 50 or 80. And I would go, "Well, what part of those numbers do you not agree with? What part of the logic?" And they would go, yeah, it all makes sense, but I can't possibly owe 65 days. And I said, "Well, 3 of your mates went to Dover for 10 days. You had people helping your 6 hours. You had people crewing in Windermere. Add it all up. It adds up to a lot of time."
It does add up. Fortunately, I've built up a lot of contacts in different countries. So I've been out to, say, South Africa or Hawaii or San Francisco, for instance, and I've met local people there that I've met on the beach in Dover. And you pick up quite a nice crowd of swimmers throughout the world. And then you can then do the swims with their help. But a lot of the big swims, I've taken my brother and his wife, he's rowed the boat. So whilst I've got the records for the swimming, my poor brother's had to row the boat a lot of times.
You were the first Briton down in Robben Island. Tell us about that. Give us the year, if you can remember, and what your experience was.
Yes, it was on not far off my 60th birthday. And I thought, what can I do? I'd already been to do the Cape Town Bay swim from Robben Island into Cape Town. And I thought, well, I'm sure you can swim around Robben Island. So I had contacts there, and sure enough, they helped me. It's only 10 miles, but the water was so cold. Obviously, the next continent is Antarctica, which is why there's penguins there. However, the great white sharks come and eat the penguins. So it really was great white shark country. Very, 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 very cold, very, very strong tides, and a huge swell from the Atlantic that's just come 3,500 miles. Quite a challenging swim, but I enjoyed it. I got sunstroke, but I did enjoy it.
So when I swam it, I made the mistake on the north side of the island of swimming in close through about 1.5 kilometers of thick kelp. Were you smart? Yeah, and did you go wide?
That's where the sharks breed. Yes, that's true.
Did you go wide there, or did you go through the kelp?
Bit.
Okay, yes, you went through it as well.
Bit. They drop you off. They don't take the boat in. You've got to swim half a mile from the boat to the island through all the kelp. Then you've got to the island. They blow the whistle, and you go back through it all over again. And again when you finish. Yes, I can still feel it now. But that's where the sharks breed.
Fantastic. You're one of the swimmers who had quite a lot of experience in shark cages.
Yeah.
And we've interviewed a number of honorees over the time. It's almost unheard of today. But tell us your first experience, which I think was Morocco to Gibraltar itself, yes, rather than Spain.
Yes, yes, it was Spain to Morocco. I was the first Englishman to do it. I know everybody's done it since, but the authorities in Gibraltar would not allow me into the waters without a shark cage, and obviously I had to go with it. So we did a practice swim from Gibraltar to Algeciras in the cage. It seemed to work all right. Then we actually did the swim with the cage. Since then, of course, people have got it timed better, so there are no sharks about, and people now do it without the cage. But at the time, the authorities they told me what I could or couldn't do. That's when Gibraltar was at loggerheads with Spain, etc., etc. So technically it was a little difficult. I used the same cage design. I tried the Florida Keys. Ben Huggard from New York tried the Florida Drift, and I thought, well, I'm sure I could do it. I did the 40-mile practice swim in the cage, but I just ran out of money. The amount of crew you need, the number of boats you need. In the end, I passed my cage on. Sue Mahoney got it from Australia, and then another guy got it. They did the swims, but they altered the front slightly. That's a bit cheating, really. It's a bit like cycling behind a bus, so I don't do the cheating bit. The cage, very popular. Fidel Castro inspected it. There's photographs of Fidel Castro looking at the cage, so I can smile at that. So that was cage swimming, yeah.
So for the people not listening, one of the big problems with a shark cage is that depending on the design, you could potentially get a strong draft effect. And it was a period of swimming where lots of purists look back and go, well, so-and-so did it in a cage. And what I try to remind them of is folks like yourself and Dr. David Smith from America, who swam the Gibraltar route. There wasn't a choice. If you wanted to get in the water, no, you had to use these cages.
There is not a choice. You can't. The amount of drafting effect, if you get the large enough mesh at the front, the drafting effect is nil. It's a bit like swimming inside a washing machine. It's only when you put baffles across, so it's like a bow, then you get the drafting effect. Really, I remortgaged the house. I'm not going to remortgage the house and go to all that effort to cheat. So it was done properly. The danger in Florida, of course, you've got Portuguese men of war and other things come through the mesh. So that's the other problem. But the sharks there, they bite. That's all there is to it. So you have to take precautions.
So you would have been more of a deficit swimmer than a professional swimmer in those years.
It's cost a lot in time, and particularly when you're doing the difficult ones like that, yes. I even had to go out to Florida a couple of times to help the man weld the cage together. So, they weren't freebies.
When you and I spoke earlier, I said that I would ask you the question about your most memorable or the proudest swim. You were very quick to throw in the Maui Channel. So talk to us about the swim and why it met those criteria.
Which swim was that, sorry?
The Maui Channel.
Oh, yeah.
In Hawaii.
I'd already done the whitewater swim many years earlier. Spent most of the time looking at the fish in the water instead of swimming. But then the Maui Channel, and I thought, I'm sure I could do that. And it was only 10 miles, and it was just a fun swim. But you swim through pods of whales, hundreds of whales. I'd never swum through pods of whales before. The baby whales come within very, very close proximity. You can't touch them, not that you would, but they're nosy and they come and swim with you. And the bigger ones, which really when you're in the water are absolutely huge, and they swim along as well. And even if the swim hadn't been aborted, I thought that was one of the better swims that I've ever attempted. Anyway, as it was, I did the swim, then went back the following day on a boat to look at the whales again.
You and I first met, and the only time we met in person, I think, was on the Queen Mary in Los Angeles. We were both inducted in the same ceremony in the class of 2012. Tell us what your memories were, and did that induction have a special place in your swimming career? Did it put a period or an exclamation point on your career?
Yes, it did. It was more like a lifetime achievement because of obviously I've been doing it a lifetime. It was good because I got to meet a lot of people that I've come across over the years. Some were middle-aged that I remember as 19-year-olds on the beach in Dover, or they'd come up to Windermere for the first time. And it was really quite good to meet some of the real golden oldies that I come across. Years ago, I even had Dale Petronek in my boat crew. But seeing all these people, I felt quite honoured that I was in company of a lot of people that devoted time to swimming.
Yeah. I have to thank Dale and also Steve Muñatones. I went to one of the early inductions held in Florida. It was a fairly subdued affair. It was a lunch. I think Dale went down to the local gasoline station or petrol station, bought some cut sandwiches and cans of Coca-Cola and some bags of potato chips or crisps. And there were maybe 20, 30 people around, and it was nice. And by the time you and I got our ceremony, we were in the grand salon of the Queen Mary with 100+ people who had collars on their shirts and made an effort to look nice for the occasion. And I found it to be quite humbling.
It was, yes. I did one of Sri Chinmoy's swims on the Sea of Galilee, and was talking to other people that went there as well. So again, I'm meeting different people from all walks of life, from different countries, that we've got the same interests. Some people say, I remember being interviewed by the press once who said, "Why do you do it?" And I said, mountaineers climb mountains because they're there. Long distance swimmers do it because they're not all there. So.
Fantastic. Christopher, I want to thank you very, very much for your time today. The International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame is slowly assembling and building a video history of clips from people swimming, from administrating the sport, and a whole bunch of these interviews. And I think this is the only bit of video that we have of you. So welcome to the video history of IMSHOF, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you indeed, Ned. Thank you.